You know what adrenaline is, I can tell you what, because it just goes up and up and up.
And it's lights out and away we go!
For 4 days a year, some of the world's best drivers come to Albert Park Lake in Melbourne to race in the Australian Formula One Grand Prix. I sat down with the man behind it all, Andrew Westacott, for a look behind the scenes. Andrew Westacott, thanks so much for your time. So talk to me about the adrenaline rush that you experience on race weekend.
You know what adrenaline is, I can tell you what, because it just goes up and up and up and up. But that hype and that build up and the adrenaline, it really is a buzz, but you need to have it in your DNA.
Where does Melbourne stand on a global scale when it comes to Formula One racing?
When it comes to mixing live sport with music, with entertainment, with hospitality and food and beverage, we have this wonderful ability to do things really, really well.
Have others tried to replicate Melbourne's success overseas?
Well and truly. We've always got to make sure that we don't take things for granted. I mean, if you're complacent in the world of Formula One, you'll lose a race, you'll lose a championship, you'll lose a driver, or you'll just lose placings. The same applies for a promoter.
What cities and circuits are the biggest threat to Australia?
Singapore does it really well, Austin, Texas does it really well, Silverstone does it really well, and then you've got the glamour and excitement of Miami, Monaco and Las Vegas coming on the scene. But it's also behind the scenes stuff. It's not just about the glamour and the glitz. This is a massive business. Formula One transports, 900 tonnes of freight around the world. There's a couple of thousand people involved. So it's a combination of showbiz and motorsport, but also a heck of a lot of project engineering and management, and maybe a bit of media and politics thrown into it as well.
Good evening. Melbourne's Formula One Grand Prix has been cancelled by COVID.
Coronavirus crisis has hit home for sporting fans, with the Australian Formula One Grand Prix cancelled.
Take me back to the 13th of March 2020 and the decision to cancel the race. What was going through your mind that day?
13th of March 2020 was a culmination of a really, really strange build-up to the event, because COVID had just hit the world earlier on that year. We were able to proceed. We were operating with very, very low levels. The event happened. We were able to race and operate on the Thursday with about 40 to 45,000 people coming along to the venue. But then positive cases, and a huge amount of positive cases in a growing nature. I say relatively huge because it was very early days. That all culminated in a decision that was probably the first in the world from a major events point of view, where we had to cancel the Formula One Australian Grand Prix for 2020.
So knowing what we know now about the virus, would you do things differently?
No, not on the basis of all the information we received from Formula One and the FIA and the teams, but also from the health authorities, both state and nationally. I mean, at the end of the day, we're a sporting event, but it was the governments and the health authorities who ultimately have to deal with pandemics in a global sense and take it very, very seriously.
Can you talk to me about some of the challenges and opportunities that you faced rebounding from the pandemic?
There's a silver lining to it all. We reimagined the way we deliver events. We learnt, we got great ideas, we modernised them, we built and capitalised on Drive to Survive, and now we're delivering a product that people love even more.
And it's thanks to that popular Netflix series that Formula One racing has gone from strength to strength.
These guys have an almost fighter pilot mentality, and that's what separates them from mere mortals.
There's no doubt that Drive to Survive has been a phenomenal success for the sport of Formula One, but you've still got to deliver on the promise. When people buy a ticket, and this year at the 2023 Australian Grand Prix, 37% of the people who came this year had gone to the Grand Prix for the first time in Melbourne. The age is now coming down to a much lower average age. 40% of the attendees were female. So the first experience that they're having of Formula One is actually not on circuit, it's on TV.
How do you deal with rockstar personalities and expectations from both drivers and the teams?
Well, you know, the drivers themselves actually don't have a lot to do with the promoters. I mean, they have an expectation that when they come to the circuit, it's going to be laid out for them and they have a great experience. So the Formula One drivers and the Formula One teams, and actually the Formula One group and the FIA, expect not only a welcoming environment, but they expect all the basics to be really world class.
And when it comes to homegrown Australian heroes, there's only one name that comes to mind.
Piastri takes his 4th pole position in a row.
Happy to be in the points. What better place to do it than at home?
That is a highlight, to see Melbourne born and bred Oscar Piastri, who grew up just down the road, to be racing on the Formula One stage with his family and grandparents and his sisters here. That's a moment in itself as well.
Technology integration has been a bit of a political issue in the Formula One world. Can you talk to me about some of those decisions and what the future looks like?
Look, I think the decision in 2014 to move from the V8 normally aspirated engines to a smaller V6 turbo powered by a hybrid power unit was a wonderful step forward. And I think Formula One will also pave the way when it comes to technological changes to making cars more fuel efficient as we move towards electrification. It's going to be borne out in many areas, but Formula One is going to be a driver of that efficiency improvement.
Formula One chiefs have tried to introduce rules to help level the playing field among teams in recent years. Today's competition is heavily dominated by giants like Mercedes and Red Bull. Are we likely to see a more level playing field between teams into the future?
Well, Formula One's trying very, very hard, and I think it's achieving success in what they're wanting to do to be able to make sure you've got to get competitive racing. So the spec changes that they had in 2022 and the move to a hybrid power unit in 2014, and now the cost caps and all the other things that they're doing, it's heading in the right direction, because we don't want to see a season or racing all the time that just doesn't have a level of variety and competitiveness. On any given race day, we want to see uncertainty, and I think the current approach to Formula One is really, really in great shape.
When it comes to putting on a show during race weekend, Andrew is in pole position to lead a team of thousands.
I was only just one individual in 230 staff who worked across the weekend from the Grand Prix Corporation. There's about 600 suppliers, and we had about 12 or 14,000 workers across the weekend on each day. Now, I'm only one individual. I can motivate, I can lead, but I can be also a really, really important part of a very, very great team. So I think the legacy is that this business is in great shape. That's going to be the exciting thing, and I'll look forward to seeing that from afar in the future.
And it's lights out and away we go.